Welcome back to the Hard Skills Show, where we take a deep dive into the most challenging soft skills required to navigate leadership uncertainty, complexities, and change today and into the future. I'm your host, Dr. Mira Brancu, psychologist, leadership consultant, and founder of TowerScope. So today we had a little bit of a hiccup, and that relates a bit to the topic for today. The guest that we originally planned to have on the show contacted me yesterday to let me know there was an unexpected scheduling conflict and that they would not be able to make the show. And they asked if they could reschedule. And before I agreed, I let them know that it did put me in a bind. I mean, honestly, I don't understand how you can have a scheduling conflict when you are scheduled for this many months ago, right? So I was already sort of like wondering why is it that they have a scheduling conflict? How could that even happen? But instead, I just asked whether the person that they identified as backup could actually still serve as backup. Now, that happened yesterday, and by this morning, there was still no response. So ultimately, I chose to let them know that I would just go in a different direction with the episode. And needless to say, I personally, not only have I not received any other follow-up, right? But I lost trust because they weren't responsive. They didn't apologize. There didn't seem to be an emergency, and they expected me to still offer them another spot. Now, you might ask, well, what if there was an emergency and they just didn't want to tell you about it, right? Because it's none of your business. And that might be the case. But frankly, like you don't have to share any nitty gritty details, right? You can say, I had an emergency and is there any way to reschedule? And I probably would have been more understanding, right? So hold on to this story for a moment while I share my next story in contrast, okay? Last week, my husband and I took a trip with our daughter to South Carolina for the long Memorial Day weekend. And it was partly to get away and partly just to use it as an excuse to visit a couple of colleges with her because she's starting to look. And I was slated to then fly out to Michigan on Tuesday, right? So we went away Saturday to Monday. I was slated to go on Tuesday to do this grand rounds talk at a mental health services organization on one of my favorite topics, developing high-performing clinical and research teams. And unfortunately, just an hour after arriving in Charleston, South Carolina, I had to undergo an emergency appendectomy. Yeah, last weekend, I had to undergo an emergency appendectomy. So here's what I did. I reached out to this mental health services center, and I sent them a message to let them know as soon as I could. So that was like Sunday. I was feeling a little bit, better because an appendectomy is not like big surgery. It's small S surgery. And so I, was already able to sort of reach out on Sunday, right? And I sent them a message as soon as I could that I had this emergency surgery. I told them the doctor told me that I might be able to travel on Tuesday and be ready to do the talk, but I wasn't fully sure that I could. And I told them I could send the check-in update on Monday night and then again on Tuesday morning. And to my relief, they immediately said, don't worry, we understand. No one can foresee these emergencies. You should recover. Don't even come, right? And I felt badly, but regardless, I still contacted them on Monday evening, even when it was clear I was not ready to travel, and I still confirmed it for them. And I didn't apologize for the emergency. Obviously, that's not my fault, but I did say, I'm really sorry. I know it takes a lot of work to plan these things. And I know this foiled the plans, and I really appreciate your support and understanding in this way. And it made me feel even more appreciative and closer to them. Now, I did have a relationship with them, so I literally did not need to say much because they would have been understanding anyway. However, that is not the point. The point is that I feel a certain level of responsibility for, colleagues who put their political, capital or their belief in me or, their time and effort into me. And I feel a responsibility to live up to that, right? And you would think the less of a relationship you have with someone, like with this guest that I had no relationship with, like I didn't know them before they were going to go on the show, the less of the relationship you have with people, the less you owe them and the less they owe you, right? The reality is that the less you have a relationship, the more you should be over communicating with them so that you don't burn bridges or cause them to make assumptions or misunderstand. Because the reality is, the less of a relationship you have with somebody, the more likely it is that we make assumptions or misunderstand their intention. This guest could be like the most nice, amazing person, and they kind of, frankly, appear to be nice. I was looking forward to getting to know them. But in the absence of information, in the absence of responsiveness, in the absence of over communicating when there is a problem, you fill it in with assumptions. And that's what I was missing. I was missing enough information to not make assumptions about their intentions. So the focus of today's session is slightly different from that. Like, it's not related to trust building, but it is somewhat related. And it's how much you choose to say and when, and how you choose to say it to be effective or ineffective. Okay. And it's the sort of what I've been thinking about is the kind of continuum from truth telling to diplomacy. Okay. And so this past week, I've been called a truth teller, or someone who doesn't take BS, by colleagues. And I find this absolutely fascinating because I don't think that I would have perceived myself this way until about 5 years ago. And personally, I don't see myself that way at all. Like, I look up to folks who I see as a lot braver than me in speaking truth to power or holding people accountable for their BS, right? Or just like poor performance or whatever that is. And I feel like I have so much more to go to feel like I'm that person. But other people, and I hear this feedback often. I mean, yes, I've heard it a lot, strangely often, very recently, but I hear this feedback often from others. They see me as a truth teller, or they say I'm brave, or that I don't take BS. And I'm always kind of like fascinated by this because of the fact that I look up to people who are much better at that. But I think some of that is because I admire that in other people. I challenge myself to lean into that as well and try to do better and better with being open and candid and, speaking that sort of like honesty when I see it happening. And I've definitely seen a bigger shift in myself in the last 5 years. So what's changed for me? Why is this important? How can this help you? That's kind of the focus of this episode. So in the past 5 years, I've gained greater clarity about not only the importance of speaking up when I have the power and the privilege to do so, and like knowing, oh, in this space, I don't feel like I have much clout or power or privilege to say anything, and I feel intimidated, or I feel scared, or I feel uncomfortable or judged. But in that space, I feel like other people have even less power and privilege, and I have the person who holds a little bit more, and I can speak up, right? So I've been like paying very close attention to that, especially since all of the sort of racial reckoning, George Floyd, 2020, all of that stuff. But I've also been thinking like how I want to do this in a way that feels aligned and maintains clear boundaries when I don't necessarily believe others, respecting my time or contribution. So there are situations where I'm concerned people are not respecting my boundaries and, or my time and contributions, and I feel like I need to put more boundaries in. But there's a way that I want to do it that aligns with kind of my personality, which is not someone who has a tendency to fight or debate, right? I wish I had that in me. I'm not a debater or a fighter, right? Instead, I am I'm constantly thinking, what's happening for that other person? Can I understand them better? Can I sort of take a different perspective, right? And so a lot has gotten me to this point to find this balance between truth telling and diplomacy. And looking back, I've always been an independent thinker who avoided groupthink or succumbed to peer pressure. Like internally, I am not that person who goes along just to get along with the group, often to the point of just going against the grain. Just to be clear, I had no interest in going along just to go along, right? And that doesn't mean getting along. I get along with people very well, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But in my college years, I felt like maybe I had the most freedom to do this. No real authority figures to question my behavior didn't make me make bad choices. It didn't lead me to make bad decisions. It actually led me to just be like more of my authentic self. And by the way, if you want to hear about my authenticity journey, listen to the first kickoff episode of my very good colleague and friend, Alexis Francis. She has a new podcast, Authentic AF, which technically stands for Alexis Francis. She's a good colleague of mine who's a happiness and authenticity researcher, and I was thrilled to be her first guest. And definitely look her up. Look at that episode that we did on that. So, what I learned in my first job is that not everyone appreciates you having your own mind about things. I learned really fast with several political missteps that there are many leaders who want you to just fall in line. And if you don't, there are consequences. And in my second career, I had a mentor that took me under his wing. You've probably heard about him before if you've listened to this podcast, who had a way of both extracting the strengths I didn't know I had, so appreciating me for who I was, while also helping me refine my political savvy, which at first I was very against. And that helped me learn how to be more diplomatic. So I'm going to share about that diplomacy journey in a second and where it got me. And then I'm going to share how I backtracked out of that diplomacy back into truth telling and how I've been able to sort of combine this in myself. Okay. So I'm going to share that in a moment. You are listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu. And you can listen to us on live right now on talkradio.nyc and LinkedIn and YouTube and other places. If you're joining us during the live stream on LinkedIn or YouTube, you can submit questions that I can answer in real time or simply say hi. I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, founder of TowerScope, a social impact company focused on helping leaders and teams navigate the complexities of today and lead better tomorrow. And we'll be right back in just a moment.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu. We're talking about the continuum between truth-telling and diplomacy. And I got a Twitch comment from Jorge Alfredo Glez, maybe, that says hi. Hi, I told you to say hi and you said hi. So thank you very much. So yeah, you can find me on Twitch too, as well, right now. Okay, so my diplomacy journey first, right? I became, under the mentorship of that leader, the most amazingly diplomatic leader. I mean, people constantly commented on my diplomacy skills. And eventually, I was invited to serve on committees because of that diplomacy, and more leadership opportunities because of that diplomacy, and increased trust in my ability to handle complex discussions with nuance. So it served me very well. And it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like the more diplomatic I was, the more people felt like I could handle very complex discussions with finesse. And that is a skill. Don't get me wrong. That is a very, very strong skill. And people really admire that, in me. And, what does diplomacy even mean? It means being really like thoughtful and careful to not offend. It means choosing your words wisely. It means being, not being offensive, and that is good and bad, right? But mostly it's not pushing people away, but pulling people in by helping them feel more comfortable with you. Like those are some diplomacy skills. It's also like engaging in a conversation with respect, with sometimes empathy or kindness, or just like inviting dialogue instead of judging or questioning, right? It's just focused on what is the information and not blaming people, but just focusing on the ideas. All of that is diplomacy. Well, that sounds amazing, right? It served me well until it didn't. You see, for every strength, there is a liability, there is a shadow side, right? When you overdo things. And there is a cost to being super, super diplomatic. And what I learned is that some people want you to be diplomatic in order to avoid being transparent about problems, right? I was put in some positions of leadership within committees or work groups or presentations or stuff like that, because they wanted to avoid hard conversations, or they wanted me to smooth over things that probably shouldn't be smoothed over, and sometimes diplomacy turns into a great way to avoid being a stronger leader. I over-indexed on appeasing, calming, and helping people get along. And I thought to myself, aren't I so amazing at threading this needle to appease everybody? Well, that also means losing sight of when it's time to challenge unhealthy dynamics for the sake of appeasing others, right? So over time, I realized that sometimes diplomacy can smooth over issues that perhaps should not be glossed over. Sometimes it's good to disrupt an unhealthy pattern. Sometimes it's important to put up a boundary when people are taking advantage. And this is where truth-telling comes in. So as I started moving out of leadership roles and back into individual contributor roles as an independent business owner, as a consultant, right? As I've tracked more closely the kind of damage that can be done when we don't speak up, as I've started, being in a role where people are looking to me specifically to speak up about what I see happening and make recommendations, right? As I've noticed just in general in society, the damage done when we don't speak up, I realized that regardless of role, regardless of whether I'm in like an official position of leadership, authority, or power. My personal leadership isn't just about how well I can keep people calm. I'm very good at that, but it isn't just about that. It's also about how to tell when it's time to move from helping people stay calm to spotting a problem before it turns into chaos, or when it's already stealthily unhealthy, right? Underground unhealthy, but it's creeping up. And speaking up when no one else can name the issue that I'm seeing. And, you know, with the many experiences that I've had in leadership and consulting and all the teams that I've worked with and all the things that I've been able to see, and like the books that I've written on egregious and, you know, less egregious workplace politics behavior, I'm better able to capture these things, to see it well before anybody else, right? So then what do I do with that? If I see it, what do I do with that? Well, I will tell you that this kind of like newfound perspective that diplomacy isn't always healthy or working, that sometimes truth telling is helpful, has led me to leave several unhealthy professional situations, right? That I didn't think I could help, that I didn't think was healthy for me, that I didn't think I could contribute in a way that was aligned with my values. It has led me to clearly express problems that, I was able to identify before leaving those situations, rather than keeping my concerns to myself and feeling like I have a responsibility to do so. It's helped me speak up in groups when I noticed unhealthy or unhelpful behaviors, when nobody else was willing to speak about it. And it's also helped me support friends and colleagues in ways that balance care with honesty. And right now, it feels critical to put up my hand every once in a while and say, stop. What is this? What am I seeing? Here's what I'm seeing. This is not healthy. This is not helpful. It's harmful. And here's why. Right. And I can do it in a calm, caring, supportive way, just focus on facts, because I also have the diplomacy side of me. Right. So in my experience, this is particularly important in two contrasting situations on teams. Okay. Situation one, some teams exhibit overtly unhealthy behaviors. And those overtly unhealthy behaviors include things like constant gossiping after meetings, blaming others without taking personal responsibility, steamrolling discussions, monopolizing conversations to push personal agendas. Just today, I was speaking to a group of leaders who were describing all of these sort of like experiences with staff complaining publicly and piling on publicly when they didn't bring it up in individual meetings and they had many chances to do so, right? Shutting others down, snarky group chats. All of that is overt, unhealthy behavior, right? It's in your face. You know it, you smell it, you see it, right? Like that is unhealthy because it's right there in front of you. But that can still cause us to not know what to do about it, right? Because we're just like watching a train wreck happen in front of us. Now, situation number two, other teams display more subtle, insidious issues that make it hard to identify the underlying dissatisfaction. It feels kind of underground. It feels like you're in this meeting and nobody's engaging. Why are they not engaging? Right? But they're like pleasant and they're professional, right? But you feel something, a kind of a tension. Patrick Lencioni, the author of The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, refers some of this to artificial harmony. artificial harmony is a situation where healthy debate and disagreement are stifled by passive aggressive behaviors and diplomacy, all for the sake of avoiding difficult conversations, right? And we also see stuff like passive aggressive behavior where like people undermine somebody, they go around somebody, they talk about them when they're not happy with them, sabotaging a project by dragging your feet, but never stating your concern. And I'm seeing these kind of behaviors, both of those situations, more now when people are under high stress, right? When people are under high stress, fear of uncertainty, worry about your job or your livelihood, feeling under threat, managing under chaos can all lead to a desire to take control in any way possible, even in the most small, minute ways, but usually in ways that are not effective. And some of those ways are by pushing people away. Some are by arguing with them. Some are by doing something perceived as undermining or passive aggressive, right? Because you don't feel safe speaking up directly. So of course it goes underground, right? That makes perfect sense that if you're bothered by something, you can't speak up. It's not safe to speak up. You're going to take it underground and it's going to come out in different ways. So every behavior like this has a function. And right now is to try to take some tiny control over the fear and stress that we experience. So in both roles, as a team member in various professional capacities and as a team development consultant, I've learned that most people don't realize they're doing this and they don't understand why others choose to do this. And that makes it hard to address when you don't know what or why you're seeing something happening, right? So I'm going to get back to this in just a moment. You are listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, through talkradio.nyc. And you can say hi or ask any questions if you're listening live on Twitch or Twitter or YouTube or LinkedIn. And we'll be right back in just a moment.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu. Okay, so I've shared a little bit about my story with the diplomacy side, and then, some of my stories with the truth-telling side, and especially like with the kinds of teams and the kind of behaviors where people struggle a lot with unhealthy behaviors, and you have to sort of like think about where on this continuum am I going to fall, and am I going to cause even more problems by speaking up? Can I be diplomatic and be honest with what I'm seeing? And I am seeing these behaviors more and more now, right, where people are under high stress, and you kind of have to sort of decide, like, how am I going to navigate this in a way that's helpful, right? So I've learned how important it is to identify unspoken tensions, unhealthy interactions, and avoidance behaviors like resistance, control, excessive risk mitigation, right? What does that look like? Resistance can look like not being willing to do something that was asked of you. This could be your only mechanism for feeling like you have some control over the situation. And yet, it might be completely ineffective when you do it, right? With certain kinds of bosses. Control can look as small as I'm not going to show up on camera for this meeting, or I'm not even going to show up for this meeting because I can't handle this situation. So I'm going to take control back over my time and not show up, right? That was another thing that was talked about on this group call with these leaders that I was talking with. You know, they're trying to understand, like, why are people doing this? Well, it's control, or it could be resistance. Excessive risk mitigation. What that looks like is micromanagement, right? When you worry about being judged, making the wrong move, maybe you already have some perfectionistic tendencies. Maybe you worry that if you don't have full control over a situation, that you're going to be blamed for something. And especially right now, where people like are being fired for no reason, or what they're calling it rift, but you know what I mean, right? You're going to end up, if you have those tendencies, to micromanage, and it's going to push your people away even more. Or another sort of like excessive risk mitigation is delaying decision making. It's putting it off, because if you don't make it, then there's less risk. Although, of course, as we know, that it actually increases risk in some situations when you delay those decision making situations. So, like I mentioned, these behaviors usually stem from real fears concerning safety, security, change that you don't want, that you don't like, that's unwanted, or uncertainty. And unless we name these issues, we cannot assist people in resetting their reactive patterns. This is where truth-telling comes in a way that's useful and helpful, right? If we can name it, we can help reset reactive patterns. I remember a colleague once using the acronym THINK, and I honestly don't remember if I got all of this right, but when you choose to share something as a truth teller, asking yourself, think, THINK, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it important right now? Is it needed right now? And is it kind? That's a beautiful way to think about finding that balance between truth telling and diplomacy. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it important? Is it needed? Or is it kind? Right? So you've got truth telling on one end, where you really can get carried away calling everybody's bad behaviors out. And that isn't always helpful or well received. Sometimes it's important, but it's not always helpful or well received, especially if you do it all the time and you're literally doing it to call people out. That isn't always helpful or needed. And you've got diplomacy on the other end, where you might envelop the truth in such a gentle way that it's hard to even find, and problems may or may not get addressed because you've hidden that little Easter egg so well in your beautifully worded diplomatic way, right? And so finding your right balance in different situations will help you become a stronger leader, pointing out concerns when they need to be pointed out and doing it in a way that is well received that points out the specifics of the facts without the kind of emotional disruption that calling out all the time may create. So obviously the ideal is to combine truth-telling with diplomacy, right? So that concerns are truly heard. It is not easy. It takes a lot of practice. And I've thought about, like, what does it take to get there? And I've come up with a few ways to get there. Number one, I know you're going to not be surprised when I say this, self-awareness. Being self-aware enough to know when you're emotionally dysregulated and not ready to share. And not able to share in a way that's useful to other people, right? Being self-aware to know what's important to you, what drives you crazy, what your pet peeves are, where your powerful strengths are. All of that can help you show up in a way that is intended, right? Where the impact matches the intent. Number two, clarity on your values and goals for the discussion. I've mentioned this in another show episode, but how do you want to show up? And in most cases, my go-tos are being clear, kind, candid, and powerful. And I actually have an image in my head of what that looks like for me when I'm being clear, kind, candid, and powerful. And so before I chime in with any of my opinions, I think to myself, how do I show up like that and help others? What is the big picture here that isn't about me and could help everyone here? That's also diplomacy. It's being able to step back, take the big picture, and think, what can I say here that supports a shared view or concern or something that's helpful to all instead of just to me or to one individual? So, clarity on your values and your goals for the discussion. Number three, obviously the courage to speak truth to power is another skill set in this. This is really, really hard. At least it has been for me. It's not hard for me to be honest and truthful with people in positions of power if I feel safe or that they value my opinion. It's obviously very hard if I've felt questioned, undermined, invalidated, dismissed. Then it's really hard, right? A fourth skill is the ability to manage or sit with discomfort. If you're going to bring something up, people will not be happy with you necessarily. And they're going to want you to take it back. They're going to want you to take it back. And they're going to do things to make you take it back. Right? They might dismiss it. They might invalidate. They might gaslight you to make sure that, like, you can take it back. They might question you. They might challenge you. They might, argue with you about your, comment, right? And so practicing managing and sitting with discomfort so that you're ready for that to happen will help you be better able to just not worry about that when you're ready to say something. Or just manage it better, right? What number am I? 5. Number 5, knowing when might be better timing to speak up. Being able to track, will this be received well at this moment in time, given where the discussion is going, takes an incredible amount of keen eye for unspoken behaviors, non-verbals, things like that. And if you could sense too much tension and people are exhausted and people have started to shut down, it's probably not the right time to bring something up. They don't have the energy to take it in, right? If people are sort of like leaning in, engaged, having a more productive conversation, it could be the right time. And I know that some people might argue with me about that one. Some people have argued with me about that one, is the timing. I'm a big proponent of finding the right timing will be better received than the wrong timing. Some people feel like there's never a good time. You might as well just bring it up. The final sixth idea or skill set is strong emotion regulation. Strong emotion regulation and self-awareness do go hand in hand. But it's basically like, am I entering this space all fired up? And in that case, can I wait a day to think about what I want to say because I'm dysregulated right now? I'm not at my best. I'm going to fly off the handle. I'm going to lose my shit, right? I'm not in a good headspace for this. So knowing when you're not in a good headspace and how to get there, right? And how to rebalance yourself is a critical skill. So I'm going to repeat these 6 back to you. Self-awareness, clarity on your values and goals for the discussion, the courage to speak truth to power, the ability to manage or sit with discomfort, knowing when might be better timing, and strong emotion regulation. There's probably more, and if you have more ideas, I'd be very interested to know what else you would add to this list to make you a very powerful truth teller with diplomacy kind of person. And of course, going back to the think acronym, right? Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it important? Is it needed? Is it kind? Always going back to that. So we're reaching an ad break. And when we come back, I'm going to pull all of this together and offer some ideas for how to lean in tactically with what does it sound like when you're combining truth telling with diplomacy in the moment. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, a.k.a. the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Meltex Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
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 You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu. So we've talked about what it looks like on one end of the spectrum with truth telling, on the other end of the spectrum with diplomacy, and what kind of skills it takes to be able to kind of balance them, and in what kind of situations you would need something like this, right? So now I just want to sort of share some ideas for tactical ways to start practicing this in your everyday life, okay? The first is focus on the purpose and not the emotion. So asking yourself, okay, if I'm frustrated and I'm angry in the situation, that's fine. But what outcome do I want from sharing this? Right? It can't just be venting. Venting, I'm so frustrated and this all happened and et cetera, et cetera. That is just communicating how you feel from a raw place. And it means you might need a little bit more time to clarify what it is you want to improve or gain more perspective or clarity around, or fix that is bothering you, that is causing you to feel that way, right? What is the purpose of the discussion? So leading with purpose, not emotion. The second is separating out what is truth from judgment. Now, I know this is kind of a sensitive subject right now. What is truth? Is a big question on a lot of people's mind right now, because the truth is starting to be distorted to such a degree that it's hard to tell sometimes, right? We see that in the media right now. Are they telling the truth, or are they rendering a judgment, or is that an opinion? And that's actually why it's critical to learn how to separate these out for yourself and not be sort of like drawn into the allure of judgment. Humans are constantly drawn into the allure of judgment. That's not helpful. So sticking to the facts, the observation, what you're seeing, what the impact is, right? So saying, hey, I noticed that we were missing 2 critical deadlines last month, which impacted the client relationship. And I'm wondering what's happening, right? A judgment would be, you're completely inconsistent, you're completely unreliable, you're not following through, and you're just not trustworthy. That's a judgment. So stepping back into, what am I seeing? Can I share that with this person and just get information? Number 3, name what is important that makes you bring this up right now, right? Name what's important that makes you bring this up right now, but do it in a respectful way. So diplomacy doesn't mean softening reality. It means just framing it in a way that the other person can hear it, which is the entire point of it, right? So saying like, I want to share something that might be hard to hear, but it's so important right now because it's having such an impact on how we're working. That's why it's important, right? So if you think back to the think, T-H-I is it important, right? Why is it important? What are the stakes? Number 4, use empathy as a bridge. This is probably my favorite one. Honestly, I should have started with this one, is trying to put yourself in the shoes of that leader or that person and understand why they might do the things that they do or what they might be experiencing. So I'm always looking for that little nugget where I can say, I can see how much effort that you've put into this. I can see how hard this work is. And I really appreciate the amount of effort that you put into this. Or I imagine how frustrating this might be for you to hear all of these people in this room sort of just like it feels like they're just complaining. They're just complaining, and you've heard so much feedback and you've tried to implement all of these things based on the feedback, and this must be really frustrating. I can completely understand that. That helps people lose some of their defensiveness and be willing to hear, because they're seeing that you're trying to make an effort to understand their perspective. And number 5, practice clarifying, right? Reflect back what you see not in a way that adds judgment. Again, do not add judgment. Do not make people feel guilty or shamed, but in a way that just like reveals what you see. Now, again, this takes some time to take a step back in order to identify the pattern in the first place. So being able to say, like, here's a pattern I've noticed, and I'm wondering what's behind it. So for example, at this one team retreat I was at, we were doing several exercises in trust building, one after the other, one after the other. And every time it hit this one person, she would say, pass. At the third pass, I just said, I've noticed you passed 3 times. What's happening? All your other colleagues are contributing, but you've passed. What's happening? Right? I'm just trying to clarify because I'm not sure what's happening for that person. So you can think about those 5, right? Lead with purpose, not emotion. Separate truth from judgment. Name the importance of the situation. Use empathy as a bridge and practice clarifying. And if I could sort of like recap the whole thing, it would be starting a sentence with either an empathy statement. I can definitely see how frustrating this is, and I really appreciate your willingness to engage in this conversation, and then going into it, right? Commenting on what you are seeing happening in front of you by first stating something like, I've been sitting with something that I've been noticing that I think is important to surface. And I'm not sure how to approach this, but I'm going to just share what I'm seeing, right? So you're using the importance element and you're helping people slowly enter into an important conversation, right? Or offering the pattern, but asking if you could offer the pattern, asking permission. Can I offer a perspective that might not necessarily be comfortable to talk about, but I think it's important for us to talk about because we keep going through the same pattern and it's getting us to the point where we're not functioning as an effective team. Or I'd like to share, I want to point out something that like I keep seeing, right? So that's a way to start entering into that kind of conversation. Now, I realize these are all hard skills. That's why I have this show. These are really some of the hardest skills to develop. The truth-telling and diplomacy spectrum are very hard skills to develop. And especially without having solid support system, a coach, a therapist, somebody like that who could help you work through the barriers that you're bringing to a situation and the goals that you're facing and, aiming for. So if you happen to be looking for that kind of additional leadership support through coaching, through team development, through consultation, reach out and let's chat. All your leaders out there are facing the same things. I keep hearing it over and over. So I know that you might need some help, right? And if you're looking for that, reach out to me. If you're looking for more of like a community experience, right? You're looking for a network, other peers, a kind of leadership learning program and community to help you with these skills, I want you to also consider applying to the TowerScope Leadership Academy. We're going to be opening up a new cohort in the fall. And the program includes small peer groups, accountability partnerships, a research-based curriculum, live coaching sessions, workshops, and a platform for a private community where people can continuously learn and experiment in a non-competitive and non-judgmental setting. So I strongly recommend that if you're interested. And the way to reach us, whether you want to work with me directly in team development and leadership coaching or the Leadership Academy, is by going to www.gotowerscope.com. And there you can click on, setting up a free consultation, or you can start reading up on any of the services that I offer. Okay, so If you want to keep learning and growing with me, you can continue listening to the hard skills. You can look me up, right? I'm a leadership coaching and consulting psychologist, associate professor, a Psychology Today columnist, and author of the Millennials Guide to Workplace Politics and the workbook. So you could also look up the workbook. And I had my own leadership career before transitioning to helping teams and high achieving folks navigate their leadership complexities. So I've been in your shoes, and I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of leaders and teams that have been in your shoes. I especially love to work with organizational misfits and with socially conscious, growth-oriented, high-achieving folks in disrupted industries like academia, STEM, tech, research, healthcare. To learn more about us, again, go to gotowerscope.com. And you could also subscribe to the newsletter to keep track of everything, right? So in addition to being a live show, we're on the Hard Skills is on iTunes, Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Amazon. Go subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with others to help our visibility, reach, and impact. Thank you to talkradio.nyc for hosting. Together, we will navigate the complexities of leadership and emerge stronger on the other side. Until next time, stay steady, stay present, and keep building those hard skills.